Hi, I'm Ruth and welcome to the Flow into Health podcast. What does it mean to flow into health? It means living in sync with the energy around you, things like your menstrual cycle, the moon, and the seasons. It means going with the flow and softening into what you may not like in your life and learning to release resistance. And it means understanding how energy flows in our bodies so we can optimize it and feel our very best. Hey guys, welcome back. I've been thinking a lot about feeling sick lately because my whole family has had this virus that just won't go away. And maybe that's partly our own fault because we're seriously not taking any time to rest. This was coming around 2 vacations where we were eating more poorly because we weren't at home, and we've just been extra active. When we get sick, we understand why we're not feeling good, but then there's also these symptoms that are always there that start to feel normal. If you aren't acutely sick, like you don't have a cold, the flu, whatever, but you aren't feeling great, I bet I can name some of your symptoms. Do you have brain fog that makes it hard to concentrate? Or maybe you have some problems sleeping, or you wake up at 2 or 3 every night and it's nearly impossible to get back to sleep right away. And because of that, you have fatigue, and it can be really hard to get out of bed in the morning. Once you do get out of bed, maybe your joints or muscles are aching, and after you eat, you get bloated, or maybe you have constipation or diarrhea. And when I talk about getting sick, you can relate, because whenever anyone has so much as a sniffle, I'll bet you have a full-on head cold with maybe even a sinus infection. What do all of these seemingly random symptoms have in common? They're caused by chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is how nearly every chronic disease gets started. Some of the chronic diseases that I think of caused by inflammation would be heart disease, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disease, and even some cancers, and that's just some of them. So it's really important to stop inflammation as soon as we can so it doesn't progress into something more serious. So what is inflammation? It's actually a normal, healthy body response to injuries or being sick. It's a way for your body to heal those injuries or fight off infections and make you better. The problem happens when our body gets confused and starts fighting something that we don't really want it to fight. When the body keeps on fighting, it creates chronic inflammation, which makes us feel low-grade sick all of the time. How does this happen? A big one I'm guilty of is getting sick and never allowing myself to fully recover, which is what I've been doing lately, and why this is on my mind. If we keep acting like normal while we're sick, we don't give ourselves time to rest and fully heal, and the inflammation remains. It can also be from toxins in your environment. Pesticides, pollution, chemicals in your cleaning supplies or beauty products can all get into your body, which your immune system can start to fight. This is actually a good thing, but when these toxins are always present, it can create chronic inflammation. We can also become inflamed from our diet. Maybe you have a food sensitivity to something you eat regularly. Eating lots of sugar or processed foods or fried foods can cause inflammation. Something else I don't hear a lot of people talking about is how working out too hard and not listening to your body can also cause inflammation. When we work out, our body needs to physically repair our muscles. It actually takes a lot of work, and if we're not resting enough, it can create chronic inflammation. I think this is especially important for menstruating women. Some of us can work out hard with no problem, but I found that many of us become stressed at certain times in our cycle, and by pushing too hard during those times in our cycle, we create even more stress. And maybe in the luteal phase, it's actually a lot better to be doing more moderate activities like walking or Pilates. All of this became apparent to me when I was in my 20s. I noticed I started losing weight when I actually stopped exercising and started eating whatever I wanted. When I was working out, I would become super hungry, probably due to inflammation. And after that, once I was so hungry, I had a really hard time eating intuitively. Instead, I had really big cravings. Once I was able to consciously eat my chocolate because I wasn't ravenously hungry from my workouts, I lost weight and felt so much better. Around the same time, I noticed I had symptoms that came and went, kind of as a group. I would keep going to the doctor to try to figure out what was wrong with me. I knew I was young and healthy, and I shouldn't be having brain fog, anxiety, or sleep problems. But every doctor told me I was okay, and I never got an answer.
But I knew there was something behind it because either I had all of the symptoms or I had none of the symptoms. I'm pretty sure at some point I had a virus that I just never fully recovered from, and the inflammation just never left me. And then there were enough other things in my world, like my diet, some environmental toxins, and me trying to work out too hard that kept all that inflammation going and going. It wasn't until I got pregnant that I allowed myself to truly rest, because I decided I was going to listen to my body, and my body wanted sleep, and a lot of it. Societally, it feels okay for a pregnant woman to want to lay around and do nothing, but in my everyday life, that would have just felt way too hard to do. I was also trying to reduce a lot of the toxins, thinking about the baby growing inside of me, and so I healed. Maybe there's also some mix of hormones when you're pregnant that also reduces inflammation. I'm not sure, but I know that after I gave birth, I felt like a totally new person, and it lasted for years. But then I had my second kid and I became super busy and I got stressed out. And once again, I got some sort of virus and I couldn't rest because I had 2 young kids at home who needed all of my attention. And the exact same symptoms came back. Again, I went to the doctor who told me I was healthy, but I knew I wasn't. There was a considerable change in the way I felt. At some point, I took steroids and I was feeling better for months and months. What do steroids do? They fight inflammation. And that's when I realized what was really going on. We've normalized these things. Being unable to concentrate or having trouble getting out of bed in the morning, and even feeling the aches and pains in our body are normal symptoms of getting older. Is that true? Or do most Americans just have such chronic inflammation that we say something that isn't healthy is normal? Based on the number of chronic diseases in our country, I really think it's the latter. So what can we do? Some conventional ways suggested to reduce inflammation are things we know we're supposed to do. Eat less processed and sugary foods, eat more fruits and vegetables, stay active by walking and not being sedentary for long periods of time, and limiting alcohol. Newer research also suggests some herbs and supplements can reduce inflammation. I'm not a clinician, so please talk to your doctor before starting anything, but I personally really love to take ashwagandha and turmeric. I'm sure there are plenty more options that I haven't gotten familiar with, and I'd love to hear your favorites. But then coming to my very favorite ways to reduce inflammation, it might come as no surprise, but I think that we need to rest, meditate, and listen to our bodies. Our bodies need rest. We need sleep to be able to heal from any injuries or viruses that are in our system. And we shouldn't be stressing ourselves out by needing to move and do and constantly be on alert and be constantly active. That stress is creating inflammation, and it doesn't allow us to fully heal from all of the things in our environment that are creating inflammation. I also love meditation. For me, a daily meditation practice became a game changer. I feel so much more relaxed and calm, which allows my body to heal. This practice has also allowed me to connect with my body, and as I've done that, I can tell intuitively what I need. I know which foods will feel good or which movement practices to try each day. We can even talk to our inner voice about the best foods or exercise for us. We know deep down that we shouldn't be doing so much, and that's what I love to help women with. If you're looking for guidance about slowing down your life, book a discovery call with me and we can talk. The last thing I want to talk about today is how we know when we're becoming inflamed. Because as you can probably tell from my story, it usually can kind of come and go. And so if we can tell that it's coming, it's easier to stop it in its tracks. But sometimes it's hard to tell that we're becoming inflamed because the symptoms come on so slowly. Like we're talking 6 months to a year, and then suddenly you're like, oh wait, I don't feel good. So what can we do? I love tracking my heart rate variability, or your HRV. I look at mine every morning on my Oura Ring app, and I plan how my day will look based on it. Will I be active, or will it be more of a rest day? It really depends on my HRV. So HRV is an indicator of stress in the body, and inflammation is a big cause of stress. I have a whole episode about it that I'll link to in the show notes. Once our HRV is slowly going down and doesn't want to return to the levels we were at when we were feeling good, we know something might be up, and we know that we're inflamed, so we can start making some of these changes that we've already talked about. My number one recommendation, just rest. Take some time to rest. Really, truly, that is going to help you so much. So, figuring out why you're inflamed can help you reduce your health symptoms and feel so much better. After I learned this, I became a big proponent of slowing down, relaxing, and taking time just to be. We don't need to be doing so much. And it's not just a spiritual practice. As soon as you can start taking time for yourself and being in the body, you relax and you reduce your inflammation. And reducing inflammation makes you feel so much better in your day-to-day life. And that's why slowing down and going with the flow improves your health. Hence, flow into health. And that's where we'll leave it this week. I hope you can take some time to relax and do nothing, and maybe reduce your inflammation and feel better while doing it. If you're anything like me, knowing you're actually being productive by doing nothing sounds like a good reason to relax.
If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe so you can be notified when new episodes are released. And if you know of anybody else who might enjoy this content, I'd really appreciate you sharing the Flow into Health podcast with them. If you can't think of anyone else to share the podcast with, a 5-star review really helps others find the podcast. Thanks for listening today. I am so grateful to the podcast listeners, and I want to continue creating content that you want to hear. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them, and maybe an upcoming episode will be recorded with you in mind. See you next time.